Welcome to the Rockin Rich Lynch on the Radio Show. I'm your host, Rockin Rich Lynch, inviting you to join me as we discover great new music by bands and artists from around the world. With interviews, music news and reviews, great prizes, and a whole lot more. Visit us online today at soundpress.net for great music promotion and publicity. Hi, this is Rockin Rich Lynch, and you're listening to the very best of Rockin Rich Lynch on the radio. We recently moved our operations from the New York, New Jersey market to Nashville, Tennessee, and we are now looking for a production and broadcast partner in the region to take the radio show to new heights. If you're a band, musician, solo act, or represent a musical project in any genre, please visit soundpress.net and our new site, musiccitynashville.net, to learn how we can help get your message to the world. Now, please enjoy this great interview from our archives. Hey everybody, it seems as good things seem to happen every 4 years. You got your presidential election heating up, the Summer Olympics just thrilled the world, and now for the second time since 2004, the return of the great NILS Lofgren to the Quebec Music Magazine. Hi Nils, thanks for joining us again.
Hey Rich, it's great to be back. Always thrilled to be on any kind of radio and letting people know about some new music. I appreciate it.
No problem. The show has grown mightily since you've last been on. We are on all over the world, and I don't even think the satellite stations can claim that. So you'll be heard.
I love that. Thanks to the internet, I've just for 14 years now, I've been off the grid without a record company, just making music and sharing it through my website, NILSLOFGREN.com. So happy to spread the word globally whenever possible.
Nils, where were you? We needed you in Beijing for some ping pong gold.
Yeah, I know. I just, lately I've been a little road weary from 100 shows with E Street, so they decided I better not, divide my skills and just stick with the music. Well,
that makes sense. I hear you. I definitely did enjoy some of that ping pong this time on the Olympics. We're going to get into it right here. This interview is going to combine some of my questions and some inquiry from the fans. I'm going to combine them all together, Nils, so there's for continuity's sake.
Sounds great.
Right off the bat, some people were concerned about the your most recent Nils note on NILSLOFGREN.com, the way you had mentioned wrapping up 40 years of touring. Now, some people took that to imply that maybe you're retiring, and you know what? After 40 years, who could blame you?
Oh my God, I'm just getting started. I'm just actually, it's a landmark that I'm proud that I made because it really wasn't thinking about it, and I just realized 40 is kind of a round number,
right?
And to be wrapping up 40 years on the road with touring on the road with to me probably, I think one of the great bands in rock and roll history is, a real gift and honor. I'm grateful. I know there's a lot of great musicians that don't get an opportunity to play in bands like I have, and I'm very grateful. And hey, I just feel like the more I learn, the less I know. So I feel like I'm not just getting started, but I got a long road ahead of me, and in no way, shape, or form would I consider retiring. First of all, I can't afford to retire because I've been working. I've been doing my own music for 40 years. I'll get back to it when the E Street tour wraps up. But if I ever won the lottery and had that freedom, I just couldn't imagine not making music and moving forward because I think emotionally and spiritually I would shrivel up and die.
Right.
So I'll always, health permitting, always be making music.
Okay, well, that's fantastic news. And, I figured as much, but, sometimes the way things are worded, you never know, what's being written between the lines.
Well,
so that's good news, Nils.
Funny I don't pay attention to all the blogs and stuff, but I was just grateful I made 40 years on the road, and, God willing, I feel healthy enough to have quite a run ahead of me if health permits. I don't see why not. So sorry anyone took that the wrong way.
Well, the real reason Nils is on the show today is to talk about the new CD, The Loner, Nils Sings Neil. And Nils, it was 4 years ago on the show that I asked you if you ever considered possibly putting together a compilation of the music of Neil Young. And at the time, you weren't too sure that was going to happen, but a lot has changed in 4 years. What can you tell us about the record?
Well, it wasn't my idea, Rich. I would have never thought of it, honestly. I feel like Neil's done quite a fine job presenting all his songs. But my manager, Anson, proffered the idea. He pointed out the most popular items by far on the website in the last 10 years have been my acoustic live CD and the live acoustic DVD with friends, which you can get at NILSLOFGREN.com. And he suggested I sing my favorite Neil Young songs, and I just didn't know if I liked the idea because I know Neil's big fan of Neil's. He's done quite well without that, and there's an occasional cover here and there. Annie Lennox did a great version of "Don't Let It Bring You Down," which I happen to play on the original, the piano part on After the Gold Rush. Anyway, I spent 2 weeks singing about 30 Neil Young songs. I didn't record. I didn't go to my studio. I just sang to my dogs and cats. And after 2 weeks, you know, some of them stopped sounding like decent karaoke and started sounding like there was something special going on. And when there was about a dozen of those, I decided if everything was live, no production, no overdubbing, in the spirit of the recordings I've done, specifically with Tonight's the Night and After the Gold Rush, then maybe it'd have a good feel to it. And sure enough, after about a week and a half, I had 15 things that felt right, and decided my manager's idea was great, and it was time to share it.
Well, we want to talk a little bit more about that, but now that this has been done, do you think there would be a possibility of a bookend companion CD of any of the other artists you might have played with?
Not really. Again, this was not my idea. The last thing on my mind, because I'm still writing, I still have ideas for, you know, inevitably when I get off the E Street tour, I'll get back to writing my own songs, and I have a notebook of ideas to explore. Fortunately, I always get ideas. I don't like all of them, but if I plow through them, I wind up coming up with a batch that I like to share. So no, I don't see myself becoming a cover artist.
Okay, no.
Anyway, this was just a labor of love and a great idea that Anson had.
And I actually had just seen the review in Classic Rock magazine out of England, and they also kind of were implying the same thing, that at least the door is open for maybe other projects like this, but I understand that you want to push and promote your original music first, because you are an original artist in your own right for all along, additionally at the time of your career. So very cool. I want to talk about the album a little bit more, but I think Neil Young, when all is said and done, he might be at the top of the list of singer-songwriters of all time, just mainly because he's so prolific. You could always count on him for an album a year, and always very varied, and just the variety of work that he's done.
Well, I think when you get to that level of writing expertise, you've got very few masters like that have a body of work to that extent. I mean, to me anyway, because I've been in this 40 years professionally and fell in love with rock and roll as a classical accordionist when I was a young teenager through the Beatles. And I think the Beatles, to me, still have the greatest body of recorded music in history. But I think, you got the Beatles, the Stones, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, Neil Young. To me, that's a very short list of people in that level of writing. There's many other great writers that have a good body of work, but nothing that, to me, spans decades and decades like the people I just mentioned, maybe the Beach Boys. But the thing about Neil and Bruce, for instance, they're still writing, they're still being, current and prolific to this day, which to me separates them and makes them exceptional. Right.
I think the thing that separates Neil is that there's like 40 years of work we've never even heard yet to come out.
Yeah, I'm hoping. Actually, it's funny because one of the songs I recorded was a song called "Wonderin'," and we actually tracked it originally on the After the Gold Rush sessions, and it never made the record. And I've got my fingers crossed it might be the original recording we did on After the Gold Rush when I was 18 years old. Might appear on this next compilation Neil puts out, but like any creative person, that's always evolving and changing. So I'll just have to hold my breath and see what's actually on the thing when it arrives. I hope this Christmas. Yeah.
Now you kind of answered my next question. But do you think that there would be additional? And I wanted to say, wondering. Yeah, I heard some versions of that from Neil bootlegs from around '74 when they were out live doing it, and a great sounding track, and I love it on Everybody's Rockin' as well.
We recorded it originally in March, I believe, of '70. I was 18 and thought it was a great track, hoping it would have been on the After Gold Rush record. But that being said, hey, there's also a whole, almost entire album of kind of island-type music we recorded in '82 or '3 before the Trans album came out. About 4 or 5 of those tracks wound up on Trans, but that's not even going to be on this first compilation because those are the later years. You know, I hope I'm around by the time he gets to that, just to enjoy some of that great stuff I got to play and record and never have heard since.
Well, that's cool. You've answered some of my questions already, so needless to say, you're excited about the archives that would be coming out.
Of course. I just wish we could get it all at once.
Now, you know, after the other album that you worked on, notably, was the Trans record, and you know that was proceed from the '80s when Neil was thought of or written to have lost his way a little bit. But I liked much of the stuff that came out during that era.
Well, that's just kind of a classic example of being a groundbreaking artist and being misunderstood, especially by the record companies who, I believe at the time, I was so wrapped up in the tour and preparing for it that I knew there was some kind of battle going on about the release of Trans regarding it being considered not Neil Young-like. But, how incredible that, after kind of inventing and creating all these machines that actually allow handicapped kids to, control train sets and have a voice and a power and a say in an otherwise really, compromised, challenged world, and to give these, incredible machines and breakthroughs and technology, souls and voices and spirits and names and personalities, to me that was, you couldn't have been more creative. And of course, record companies are just interested in they want everyone to sound like your last hit so they can make money. They don't care about art. And I admired Neil for sticking to his guns and getting most of that stuff out. And actually re-recorded one of my favorites, Transformer Man, when we did the MTV Unplugged in the mid-'90s. So anyway, hats off to Neil. That was a rough chapter, but fortunately he got that stuff out to share. Yeah,
I definitely love that record. And you were actually on that tour with him, too, as well.
Yeah, we did 6 weeks in Europe, mostly stadiums. It was a great, great tour, crazy stuff, and had a ball. And, all the outings with Neil have been memorable.
Hey, Nils, let's continue to talk about, we are talking today the great, great Nils Lofgren, most notably known for his work with Neil Young and his work in the E Street Band with Bruce Springsteen, solo artist in his own right, founder of the band Grin. So much going on. And thank you, Nils, for being back on the show, because I always enjoy talking to you.
Oh, thanks, Rich. I'm thrilled to be on your show and let people know what I'm up to. I appreciate the time.
NilsLofgren.com, The Loner, Nils Sings Neil is the new record, 15 tracks, authentic covers of Neil Young songs. I say that you Nilsified them a little bit. There's some Nils Lofgren vocal nuance that maybe differentiates them from the originals. You're using a guitar that Neil Young gave you. You're playing also on piano. That's very special to you. So it's a very cool record all in all. I liked it a lot. I'd like to ask you to tell me, you already mentioned one, maybe 2 other tracks that you really like on the album, and for any reason, for your performance or what it means to you.
Well, it's strange. I sang about 30 songs and then started... I just sang for 2 weeks again to my dogs and cats. I didn't record. I just wanted to see which songs started feeling special. And I played the song Harvest Moon on the Bridge Benefit and also on the MTV Unplugged. It's one of my favorite songs that Neil wrote. And for some reason I had it in my head. I couldn't do it justice. And I really have to hand it to my wife, Amy, who kind of convinced me I needed to give it a try, because we've taken trips before to just go see Neil for a weekend, and we're both big fans. And sure enough, it turned out to be, I think, one of my best vocals. The whole record's live. There's no overdubbing. There's no production. It's all live at home, and all of these are live performances. But Harvest Moon turned out to be one of my favorite vocals, and another one of my favorites, Only Love Can Break Your Heart, which I played and sang on originally on After the Gold Rush. I had a version I liked, and again, I have to hand it to my wife Amy, who encouraged me to kind of top it and do something she felt might be more authentic. She's not a musician, so she's just not burdened by all the, minutia of being a professional musician. And I gave it another poke on the piano and came up with a better version. So it's a real labor of love between Anson and my wife Amy. I got some good feedback, and again, these are all live performances, so once in a while I go back and just take another shot at something, but those are two that come to mind.
Very good. I like the Loner, Mr. Soul, and the Bottleneck intro on World on a String. Nice work, Nils.
Yeah, thanks. World on a String was, did that originally live in the rehearsal hall and to tape, and Tonight's the Night. And I sang it on piano, I sang it on guitar, and it just was too pretty. Didn't have the grit that the original recording I was on had, and I thought I'd give a low-tuned, open bottleneck dobro a shot, and sure enough, it got some of the nastiness it needed and came up with a take that felt right.
All right, Nils, a couple questions from the fans. Bet Moore wants to know how was it like to be discovered by Neil Young at the age of 19, or how did that come about?
Well, actually, I met him when I was 17. I hit the road with Grin in '68 at 17, and we were headed to L.A., and snuck back on Neil and Crazy Horse at a show at the Cellar Door in D.C. He was kind enough to give me a guitar, lend me a guitar to sing. I sang some Grin songs that were already written, and he liked them. So I watched 4 shows over 2 days in a nightclub. And he kept calling and said, look him up in L.A., which I did. And thankfully, his producer, David Briggs, moved me into his home and took my band under his wing. And as we were making our rocky way with its ups and downs through the L.A. music scene, a year later, when I was 18 years old, he asked me to do the After the Gold Rush project. Played a lot of piano, guitar, and sang. Didn't own a guitar, so he lent me a D18 that he had been writing on, an old Funky Martin, and when the sessions were over, he gave it to me as a gift. Certainly my most cherished guitar, and the only and obvious choice to record Neil Young songs with.
Hey, Beckmer wants to know if Neil Young, or what Neil Young thought of you recording his tunes, and if you've heard from him since its release.
I have not. I spoke with Neil as soon as the music was recorded, and I knew it was going to be a CD, as I was making plans to mix it and master it with Billy Wolf, a great engineer in Virginia. I talked to Neil at length about it, just wanted to get his blessing, and he gave me some good pointers on the liner notes, and I've since sent him an advance copy and the final copy, heard from his wife Peggy, who liked it, and his manager Elliot. Have not heard from Neil yet. I'm not sure if he's heard it, because I know he was right in the middle of preparing for a world tour in Europe. And, I hope if and when he does hear it, he'll recognize it as honest and sincere attempts to recreate his, gorgeous songs. So I don't really know if and when he's heard it.
Okay, well, everybody, we are talking to NILS LOFGREN, discussing The Loner, Nils Sings Neil, Nils' new record, just one in a long line of discography that you've put out over the years, and I'm a fan. I got a lot of stuff. Hey, I wanted to ask you, American Beat Records had released Wonderland last year. Have you been happy with the results?
I was thrilled. Yeah, they've been one of the few companies. All along we've been trying to get the old music we released, and the companies have said no, and have not given us a good reason. So I was impressed that American Beat got Wonderland out. That's one of my favorite records. That was another record where all the vocals are live in the studio, bass, drums, and my main guitar tracked live as a power trio. So it's got a special vibe and feel. And that was another, thematic sing live record. So that was really cool, and I hope they have some more success with it. I know they're trying, but for some reason the companies are resistant to re-releasing my stuff. But hey, I just carry on. I actually just on my website, nilslofgren.com, got a new project going. I started a beginner's guitar school for all the people that think because they have no talent or rhythm, they're not allowed to play guitar for fun. So they're hour lessons you can download every few weeks. And I try to give people stuff they can do that's fun immediately with one finger while you're navigating the more difficult gymnastics for the hands, which inevitably is learning guitar.
Right. Well, I was just about to move into the guitar lessons discussion, because I did see you on The View teaching Whoopi Goldberg a little bit. Was she a good student?
She was. I mean, to have 4 minutes isn't a lot of time, and she did pretty good. I hit her with some rhythm. I hit her with the first blues position leads, and she handled it really well. And that's the thing. I mean, inevitably you got to practice and get frustrated, and your hands will cramp. So I try to show people things to do with one finger and jam along with me each lesson, just to keep them engaged and remind them it needs to be therapeutic and fun. Because everyone's pressed for time. We've got kids, sick parents, crazy bosses, nutty jobs. I mean, it's just a crazy planet. So I'm trying to break it down and let people have fun as they navigate the hard work of learning an instrument, because if you can enjoy it, you know, that'll keep you engaged, and it's a beautiful therapeutic hobby.
And people can go back over and over to your 1 hour downloadable videos. I mean, once they get it, they own it. And is there any interaction with you as a teacher?
Well, you know what? People are sending me emails, and I try to respond to each one of them with just little pointers and tips or oddball questions. So I've been pretty successful at staying in touch with fans that have other questions. I think there's 6 lessons now, and once this tour's over, I'll get to the next batch and just try to keep them coming. Now,
you currently have a beginner and an intermediate section on there. Do you figure you'll be getting into advanced and levels as time goes on?
Well, everyone, most people that get the intermediate lessons, there's only four of them, they've felt that they're really advanced lessons. They kind of disagree with the title, but that's a small point. They are for people that play, but you know what? I break things down so slowly that anybody who plays a bit might benefit from the intermediate lessons. The next big intermediate lesson, probably take 2 or 3 of them when I get off the road, will be the Because the Night solo. I've been breaking out pretty regularly with the E Street Band. It's getting some attention. That's a song I've played and a solo I've crafted, and, you know, at least the touchstones of it, and pretty much improv and played in my own shows, actually, for a number of years. So it's great to be in front of the E Street Band with Bruce singing and get to break out that solo pretty regularly on our tours, and that'll be the next intermediate lesson.
That's cool. We want to get to some Magic Tour highlights in the next section. I got a few more questions about your guitar lessons that are available online at nilslofgren.com. Sons of Beaches wants to know, have you ever in the past given or received guitar lessons?
You know, when I was a teenager, I briefly gave a few lessons at home, that way back in the 60s. When I moved from classical accordion over to guitar, my brother Tommy started showing me chords in the house. He was my first teacher, did a great job. And then briefly, for about 3 months, I took lessons from Scotty Ball, who wound up playing bass in my first solo bands. He was a hotshot guitarist locally. And a great teacher named Bill Singer, who gave me, you know, a few months of lessons. And really, I learned a lot from Bill, just between studying the Hendrix and Clapton leads and learning Chet Atkins picks the Beatles. Can't Buy Me Love was a huge, enormous hard work, a month of hard work learning how to finger pick with interdependent rhythms in your fingers, which to this day is a huge part of my style. Roy Buchanan, one of my local heroes, that's where I heard harmonics sound like bells. And even though Roy played with a flat pick and showed me how to do it, I couldn't do it his way. I was able, with his more inspiration than anything, just because I got to see him play a lot and actually play with him a bit, I figured out how to make those bell-like sounds with the thumb pick. So I kind of came up with a bouncing harmonic style, which is actually my second intermediate lesson on the NILSLOFGREN.com site. But it's all good stuff. I feel like 40 years on the road, I got a lot to share. And between 10 years of classical accordion and all these years on the road and some great guitar teachers briefly when I started, I feel like I have a lot of knowledge to share, and I'm going to try to do that through the guitar schools.
Very cool. That kind of sums up a bunch of the other questions I had. You know, you got the good qualities. It sounds like you got a ton of experience. You got a lot you want to share. You're breaking it down slowly. It sounds like you're patient and you're accessible if people have questions, which is, you know, really cool. I mean, who else can say that?
Well, it's something I found that I did the first rock and roll fantasy camp. Actually, Clarence was with me in the early 90s, and I found out there that if I'm sitting around with a room of like a dozen students that are anxious to learn, doesn't matter what their level is, I've got something to show them, and I learn too. You know, it's just kind of great to revisit how you're doing things, and it gives you fresh perspectives because I'm learning something too.
Hey, I picked up a VHS of yours a while back where you taught some electric and acoustic rock guitar, but I imagine that the internet age, you know, things are a little more dynamic.
Well, listen, I got a great camera. I don't know much about technology, but I record the lessons, make sure it sounds and looks okay, and then Dick and Linda Bangham, who run my NILSLOFGREN.com website, are kind enough to put it together and get it out and available. And you know, I'm just barely answering emails now, but it's a great tool that's allowed me to kind of forge a path without record companies and kind of be independent and not be burdened by the music music industry and all the craziness of that, and get to just do things I'm proud of and share it.
All right, Nils, thanks for talking about that. I'd like to ask you just a couple more questions if I could.
Yeah, I got about 5 more minutes, so they're all yours.
Okay, in 2006, I got to speak to Billy Squier fresh off his tour with Ringo Starr, and he sounded like he had a great time as a role of guitar player in the band, something you did twice. Can you tell us a memory from your experience of playing with Ringo?
Well, thanks to Bruce again on the Born in the USA tour. After a show at Wembley Stadium, we went to Ringo's birthday party late at night. There was a big jam session, got to play with him. And got to talk to him in the wee hours, and he gave me his number, said stay in touch. And the Beatles are my heroes. That's how I discovered rock and roll. I still think they have the greatest body of recorded music in history. So I started calling him every few weeks to say hello, and I was in England every year touring, and Ringo would come to the shows. And, in 89, he called and said he wanted me to be part of his first all-star band, and again in 92, Joe Walsh and I, another incredible guitar player that I love, got to be repeat members in those two bands, and that was a dream come true to help, one of the Beatles just get out and have some fun, which he'd never done. He'd never gone on a tour other than the Beatles, so to be part of his first 2 outings was a big honor, and it was just a ball, and an incredible cast of characters, and the style was round robin, so we all got to sing 2 or 3 of our own songs each night. It was just a very unusual, powerful band.
Your work with Bruce Springsteen is approaching the quarter-century mark. Out of all the tours you've done with Bruce, Nils, do you have a favorite, and why?
Oh, of course. I mean, always when you're with a band that's growing and evolving, your favorite is the last one, which is this one we're about to wrap up. I think the band's never been in better shape. Bruce is now doing, for the first time I've seen him in 25 years. In fact, I used to buy tickets in the 70s, and I knew there was some improv in the show, but nothing like this. I mean, the whole set's an improv. He's dragging 30 signs out of the audience and rifling through them like a college kid looking for a clean shirt, trying to pick the next song. He's not burdened by decades or projects. He just, will do anything and everything. We're doing cover songs. We're having band meetings in the middle of the stage to work out arrangements. It's just very unusual, something nobody's ever done in rock and roll, and I'm proud to be a part of it. So absolutely, I think we're the best we've ever been, and this certainly is my favorite tour, although I've enjoyed them all. Well,
people think the show's got a lot looser since the passing of Danny. Now, did that, how did you guys cope with that, and did that change the chemistry in the E Street Band at all?
Well, listen, it's a brutal loss. It's a new experience. I mean, I lost bass player I've been with for 10 years, Wade Matthews, a few years ago in my solo bands, and losing Danny was brutal, and honestly, having shows to navigate the grief have been a huge help. Charlie's done an amazing job. I just couldn't ask for a better guy to step in there. Nevertheless, it's a big loss, and we're feeling it, and I couldn't ask for a greater way to navigate the grief and have these great shows with the great audiences that have been showing up.
And it seemed like you had a great time on the tour. You got to really jam out a lot on Prove It All Night. Tunnel of Love was back in a lot of shows. Because the Night, as you've already mentioned, you were spinning around. The flips were back. It just seemed like you were having a ball, Nils.
Yeah, well, actually, the flips were a forward dive roll, but that's just a little minor gymnastic title. And, people always tend to see the big solo things as, honestly, I'm, putting the heaviest strings you can buy on a Jazz Master and with a thumb pick that's like a board, pounding them and playing the rhythm to Born to Run, to me is just exciting as playing it Because the Night solo. And I'm doing stuff like that the whole night. So even though I might not be up front playing a solo, I'm down in it. I love the music. I love the challenge. I love every little part I'm playing, whether it's a shaker or a tambourine, a pedal steel, dobro, whatever. I'm in it, and love Bruce and the music. Real proud of the band, and just grateful this latest chapter I think's our best.
Some fans are concerned with the proposed departure of Max, in 2006 to join Conan on the Tonight Show in June. That the band is going to be changing in some way, and they also think there might be another gathering in 2009 to send that off. Any clue if that might happen?
Oh man, I don't have a clue. I mean, right now I'm just focused on doing a good show this Saturday night.
I know it's hard to ask you that, just coming off 100 shows and almost 2 years on the road.
Listen, I don't think since even before I joined the band, especially now, I don't know any adult, especially with 3 teenagers, that can tell you what he's going to be doing in 13 months.
I absolutely.
Tell you what they're doing in 13 days. So, as always, way before I was in the band, the focus is finishing this tour. Health permitting, of course. I'm a fan, too. Who wouldn't hope there's another chapter? But honestly, it's just be impossible to at this point have any future plans or even hope or count on them or count them out. It's just not an appropriate, to me, question. It's just a what-if thing right now.
Right. I hear that, but that you can understand the fans' concern when they start to.
I'm a fan too. I'm right with them. But my point is, I've long ago realized that, when Bruce and John Landau make an announcement,
right,
then that's something I get excited about. Until then, I just ignore the rumors.
Very good. Will you be going on the road to support the Loner at any time in the future?
Well, what I'm hoping is, early next year I'll get out and do shows of my own. I've been doing a lot of acoustic duo shows, and certainly all these Neil Young acoustic versions would lend themselves to my solo shows, and I'll fit some of those in. Just not exactly sure when I'll get back out there, but I'll keep everyone posted through NILSLOFGREN.com.
Hey, Nils, is it true that you sent correspondence to the Rolling Stones around the time of Mick Taylor's departure to let them know about your availability? I thought I had come across that a couple of times.
Well, the truth is I knew Ronnie Wood was the guy, and after a month went by with no announcement, I got Ronnie on the phone because I used to open for the Faces and was kind of a teenage guitar groupie of Ronnie when he was in the Jeff Beck group, so I had a history with him. And he was very open and kind to let me know he turned the job down. He actually got me in touch with Keith at his cottage, and Keith was incredibly, he didn't know me, and he was very kind and said, yeah, we want Ronnie. He won't do it. We're going to have open auditions with the whole band. You can be one of many, many guitar players. Come on down. He was very sweet about it. I knew Ronnie was the guy, but at the time he turned the job down, I wanted to just, for my own love of the Stones, go on record as saying, look, if you need a guitarist, I want an audition just because I love their music. What happened was what should have happened. Ronnie changed his mind and took the job, which really he belonged in. So, but that was the truth to that story. Thanks to Ronnie and Keith being so frank and honest, I was able to at least say, look, I love you guys. You're not going to find a bigger fan that plays guitar. If you need somebody, let me come to the auditions. And Keith said, fine. Those auditions never happened because Ronnie changed his mind and took the job that belonged to him anyway. Hey,
if the Stones ever, for whatever reason, needed a guitar player to join them on another world tour, is that something you'd even consider?
Well, look, if you get Mick and Keith and Bruce to promise never work at the same time,
you could do it.
Feel good about it? Yeah, I'm there.
Okay, Nils, thank you very much. Get some rest too, okay?
Hey, thanks for letting people know what I'm up to, Rich. Greatly appreciate it.
Okay, love you, man. NILSLOFGREN.com, everybody.
Hey, thanks so much, Rich.
Okay, have a great one, Nils.
All right, all the best. Thanks.
Bye. Thanks for listening to the Rockin' Rich Lynch on the Radio Show, part of the SoundPress.net radio network. Remember, if you're a band or artist looking for promotion, or if you'd like to sponsor this show or add this program to your station, please get in touch with us today at SoundPress.net.